65 pitched battles, 32 different nations. Alexander the Great, Caesar, and Napoleon cannot compete with him. Scorched cities, crying innocents, nothing can soften him. Fear is now ordinary, spirits are now friends. One of the 5 deadliest humans who ever lived. The father of modern warfare, and the greatest commander of all time, Subutai. Military historians single out one person above all others. That name is Genghis Khan's hound, Subutai Ba'atur. Yet, in truth, he was neither a nobleman nor the child of a king. Subutai was born in the year 1175 into the Uriankhai tribe. The son of a blacksmith. The Mongols called them the forest people. Years prior, Subutai's father had sworn an oath of generational service to Genghis Khan's father. Years pass, and the time to keep that given oath has finally arrived. First the older brother Jelmi, and then 14-year-old Subutai begins serving by Genghis Khan's side. Subutai's oath of service is word for word as follows. I will protect you from your enemies like a felt blanket. When a storm rises, I will be that blanket keeping the wind away from you. I will go first for you, and I will stay last for you. An oath sworn to Genghis is no empty oath. The punishment for breaking this oath is being boiled in a cauldron. Subutai's older brother Jelmi had already proven himself and become a general. Yet in Mongol discipline, even if you are a general's brother, you start from the lowest rank and rise only if you have the talent. It was the same for Subutai. His duty was to wait outside Genghis Khan's tent and constantly stoke the burning fire. In fact, years later, Genghis Khan would say, "That little boy waiting outside my tent has now become a giant who makes the world tremble." After a while, Subutai is selected for the guard unit called the Korchi. This unit is essentially a military academy. Here, Subutai receives basic training in modern military sciences such as map reading, logistics planning, and communication discipline. Thanks to his intellect, he succeeds in winning Genghis Khan's favor. Genghis Khan subjects Subutai to a small, yet crucial test. This is the moment that will change his life. His mission: infiltrate enemy market territory and gather intelligence. Subutai successfully accomplishes his mission without the enemy having the slightest clue. In a short time, he becomes one of Genghis Khan's 4 hounds. This title is not derogatory. It expresses the highest rank, generalship, and unwavering loyalty. Those 4 hounds are Subutai, his brother Jelmi, Jeeb, and Kublai. Their mission is to conquer the world. They have only one constitution, the words of Genghis Khan. Do not forget that throughout history, no one has conquered as much territory as Subutai. His next major assignment is China. Here, with his army, he proves to be a true genius. Has the China army taken shelter behind impregnable walls? Then divert the course of a river and witness the power of water. See how the walls come crashing down. Has the China army positioned itself on a high hill? Then burn all surrounding cities and villages, poison the waters, and wait for them to starve. It was through these methods that he succeeded in bringing the Mongol Empire all the way to the China Sea. His next mission, alongside other generals, is to destroy the Khwarazmian Empire, a Turkic state. At that time, the Khwarazmian Empire was the most powerful and wealthiest state in the Islamic world. At the head of the state were Sultan Muhammad and his son Jalal al-Din Khwarazm. The Turkmens, the main power within the Khwarazmian state, favored war against the Mongols, while the Persians favored submission. Yet this division will be their undoing. Subutai's mission in this campaign is to capture Sultan Muhammad. While Sultan Muhammad awaited the Mongols at the border, Subutai had already crossed the impassable Kizilgam Desert in the dead of winter and penetrated deep into the country. He had a special tactic: Subutai would spread his army over a wide area. Thus, the enemy could not figure out where the target was. However, at the moment of attack, he would unite all his Tumans at a single point to secure overwhelming superiority. This is called blitzkrieg, and its first practitioner in history is Subutai. During the First World War, Adolf Hitler's staff officers learned and utilized this tactic directly by studying Subutai's techniques. As you may have heard, during the Khwarazmian campaign, cities like Bokhara, Samarkand, Ray, and Nishapur, nearly the entire population, millions of people, and even all animals, including dogs, were completely wiped out. This was carried out precisely by Subutai and the troops under his command, because Genghis Khan's order was clear. In cities that show resistance, no body shall draw breath. In some cases, every Mongol soldier was required to bring back at least 20 heads. Afterwards, a count was taken. Separate towers were built from the skulls of women, children, and men, and a numerical report was given to Genghis Khan. It sounds terrifying to us, I know, but for the Mongol army, this was like sweeping leaves. Genghis Khan had rules, and they were to be applied without exception. Ultimately, the Mongol army completely destroys the Khwarazmian nation. Yet instead of returning, Subutai asks Genghis Khan for permission and embarks on the greatest reconnaissance campaign the world has ever seen. The year is 1223. Subutai crosses Iran with 20,000 cavalry. He takes Azerbaijan and Georgia. In the winter, look, I say in the winter, he crosses the Caucasus Mountains and enters the Kipchak steppe. One of the most famous victories in history is about to be won. Russian principalities with an 80,000-strong army against 20,000 Mongols. Subutai applies a retreat tactic as if he is losing and lures the Russians behind him like a defeated commander for a full 9 days. Exactly what Subutai wanted happens, because the undisciplined Russian units have spread out and exhausted themselves. At that exact moment, Subutai's true power steps onto the scene and completely annihilates the Russian army. Now you will witness an unimaginable event. Subutai had promised during the battle that the blood of the captured Russian princes and nobles would not be spilled. Noble blood was not shed on the steppe. So what does he do you know? Subutai and Jeeb have their men build a wooden platform in a snowy area. The Russian nobles are tied down underneath the platform. On top of the platform, banquets are set up for victory celebrations. Throughout the night, while Subutai and his commanders eat, drink, and sing songs, the wooden platform slowly sinks into the snowy ground. Indeed, no blood was spilled. The Russian nobles beneath the platform died by having their bones broken, suffocating, and being crushed. I realize this is an extremely harsh and savage tactic. Yet Subutai was not just a monstrous commander, but an analytical thinking professional. Throughout the reconnaissance period, he did not merely fight whoever came before him. He mapped out the entirety of Europe. Which rivers in Europe freeze at what time of year? When do they flood? Which pastures feed Mongol horses in which months? Where are the passes in the European mountains? How many lords, princes, and kings are there across Europe? Which ones are capable? Which ones are in alliances? Who has an agreement with the Pope? Which days are holidays? Which days are rest days? What weapons of war are used? How many days can a fortress hold out? To secure this information, Subutai had unleashed his spies all over Europe. Sometimes they went as merchants, and sometimes they blended among the populations fleeing from the Mongols, spreading terror of the Mongols in the regions they went to. The Venetians were also their most important allies in Europe. In exchange for trade privileges, they reported European alliances to the Mongols. In other words, Subutai was both a ruthless warrior and a master diplomat at the negotiating table, because he had a grand plan. The year is 1226. China is about to be completely conquered. The great ruler Genghis Khan summons a Subutai. Look at the geography, folks. He's going to war in China all the way from modern-day Ukraine. Distances are never a problem for the Mongols. In fact, Subutai is not only history's most conquering general, but also the human who traveled the greatest distance in the saddle. The distance he covered throughout his military career is approximately 320,000 kilometers. He traveled enough distance to circle the globe 8 times. When the Great China Campaign began, only the youngest of Genghis Khan's 4 hounds, Subutai, was still alive. Genghis Khan commemorated them with these words, "They're my 4 hounds. Their brows are made of bronze, their beaks of iron shears, and their tongues of swords. Their hearts are made of iron, and their whips are the wind." The year is 1227. While the Great China Campaign is ongoing, bad news arrives. Genghis Khan has died, and Ogdi has ascended the throne. The continuation of the empire depends on a single man. Subutai shows the same loyalty to the new Great Khan Ogdi as well, and China is largely taken. Now the time has come for Subutai's biggest dream. He presents his plan to the Great Khan Ogdi. Remember those detailed reports describing Europe we mentioned earlier? Well, based on those reports, he had crafted the invasion plan for the entirety of Europe. This plan is considered by military historians as the masterpiece of grand strategy. It is such a planning that it encompasses an 18-year war process, writing down almost to the exact hour in which month of the year which city of Europe will fall. First stage, the conquest of Russia. Napoleon had advanced on Moscow in the winter and perished. Hitler fell into the same trap and perished. Yet Subutai will be the sole commander to take all of Russia during the winter season. The Russians did not think the Mongols would come before spring. Yet on the coldest days of the year 1237, Subutai took his historic step. Wagons and horses could not move through the snow. However, Subutai made a technical revolution, deciding to use the frozen rivers of Siberia as a highway. He had large sledges built and moved his army across the frozen rivers. And before long, the entire Russian expanse was wiped off the map. Yet Mongols never stop. Now it is time to take Europe. Subutai split his army in 2. The northern branch would handle Poland, while the main force, the southern branch, would enter Hungary. At that time, Hungary possessed the greatest safeguard in Europe. They thought the massive natural border of the Carpathian Mountains could not be crossed. As King Bela IV of Hungary was in a meeting with his staff, a panicked courier bursts into the room and says precisely this: "My lord, unfortunately the Mongols have already crossed the Carpathians." To understand how impossible of an achievement this is, look at this. When the Austro-Hungarian armies tried to cross the same mountains in 1915, 800,000 soldiers froze to death. Subutai achieved it in just a few days with almost 0 losses. King Bela stands before him with a 60,000-strong army, but the Hungarian army is utterly annihilated. Subutai's next target is Vienna. According to the plan, Vienna was to be taken and passed within a few days. His goal was to take France and Italy and ride his horses as far as the ocean. Yet unexpected news arrived. The Great Khan Ogdi had died. He was awaited at the Kurultai for the election of a new Khan. The Christian world was saved. The Pope was declaring, "God saved us by killing the Great Khan." Indeed, Europe escaped being a Mongol land at the very last second. If the Great Khan had lived a few more years, the map would have looked entirely different. The year is 1242. Subutai is now 67 years old and struggling even to mount a horse. The Great Khan asks one final thing of him: the task of crushing the rebellion in China. Unable to ride a horse, Subutai is carried on a litter to take possession of China one last time. For a Mongol, being unable to ride a horse is a sign of retirement. At 71, he returns to his simple tent on the steppe. He neither had palaces built for himself nor accumulated vast treasures. He lives in peace inside his modest tent, and in the year 1248, at the age of 73, he closes his eyes to life. The old wolf has passed away. Subutai Ba'atur won hundreds of battles. He personally won 65 pitched battles. He conquered more than 10 million square kilometers of territory. He was never defeated, never hesitated. His grave was destroyed according to steppe traditions, leaving no trace behind. He is now blended into the breath of Koktingri. Who knows? Subutai, the greatest commander humanity has ever seen, is perhaps now alongside his master and great friend Genghis Khan.